I recently started combining design elements from an old school dyeing technique from Okinawa called Bingata with watercolor, and the results are pretty fun and pretty amazing. If you want to learn how I did it and you want to join in the fun, join me. Come on, let's paint. I'm Bryce Watanabe, and thanks for joining my channel. I recently went back to Okinawa with my entire family for the Worldwide Okinawan Festival, where all the Okinawans from all over the world come back to Okinawa every 4 years for a huge party. It was a blast. One of the biggest things I took away from that trip wasn't just a better connection with my culture and heritage, but specifically as an artist, I was fascinated and enamored by the dyeing techniques of Okinawa. They have such a deep relationship for dyeing fabrics, and they have so many different ways of expressing it. One of those ways is Bingata. Bingata is kind of like a stenciling technique for dyeing fabric. And so what you do is they use rice paste and they put it over the fabric, and after that rice paste dries, they can then paint in and dye the fabric in these very elaborate, colorful designs, often referring back to animals or nature. And when the dye is set, you can then rinse out the resist paste and you're left with these very crisp, clean white lines, or whatever color the original fabric was before you put that dye on. And the results are pretty impressive. When I came back to Hawaii, I thought that how could I replicate this? How could I bring this back home? And so I've developed a watercolor technique that kind of replicates that. It's a really fun process. If you like puzzles and you like painting, then this is definitely going to be a craft for you. But enough talking about it. I'll show you how I did it.
So what I'm going to start doing now is I'm going to start blocking my image. So you see the rough sketch here I have. This just helps me lay out the design and figure out exactly where I want the shapes, and if those shapes, when I put them together, actually make a picture that is nice to look at. And so once I finish my blocking and my sketching, I'm going to go in and I'm going to start creating the actual lines that are going to create the stencil itself. So you have to kind of think backwards, and this is where the puzzle part comes in. You have to think backwards in terms of creating the image you want to create when you're stenciling. What I'm actually drawing in here is going to end up being the sticker that I put over the watercolor paper. That's going to be my stencil. So even though it looks black here, that's actually going to be the part of the painting that ends up white when I remove that sticker. This might seem a little complicated, but if you have a Cricut machine, you probably are following what I'm saying because you've made vinyl stickers before. I'm basically making a giant vinyl sticker that I'm going to put over my watercolor painting for all the parts that I don't want the color to touch. So for that reason, it's really important that although I want to get as many design elements as I can in this painting, I can't get too detailed in terms of the thinness of the line or the the minute details of the picture itself, because it's going to make it really tough when I actually have to peel apart that sticker and take away all the negative space. I'll walk you through the process of what I'm talking about in case you're not following me, but in general, what I'm doing is I'm creating a giant sticker. And so right now what I'm drawing is I'm drawing what is going to be the sticker that I cut out of a giant piece of vinyl. So the image that I'm actually using here this is a view of Kualoa. It's part of the island of Oahu. It's an Ahupua, and it is a land division that is off the east side of Oahu. And in the foreground, I have this little island called Mokoli'i here, and the legend goes that this little tiny island is actually the tip of a lizard's tail. After a huge battle between Pele and this giant mo'o, this giant lizard, the tip of this lizard's tail got cast into the ocean, and so over time, the debris settled and it formed this little island called Mokoli'i. In the background is Kualoa, and modern day that's Kualoa Regional Park, and that's where we like to go and have a lot of our picnics, and a lot of folks love camping there. It's just a beautiful spot on the island, and I've actually been in love with this place for a really long time, since I was a kid and a young adult, and all the way up until now. And so a lot of my images, for some reason or another, I love drawing images of Kualoa, of Mokoli'i, and of Kaneohebe in general. But yeah, so you can see me adding a little more details in here, making some patterns and designs in the waves. I'm kind of experimenting with what will actually end up becoming fish. So you can see I was kind of experimenting with some squiggly patterns. I think I was going for a jellyfish or a Portuguese man-o-war, but I ended up going for something a little simpler, something I knew I could peel out of the vinyl sticker a little easier, which would be these little fish. And those little scales that I'm putting on the edge of the fish, you'll see that's gonna pose a challenge for me when I pull apart the sticker, as well as those little dots that I put in there. That might have seemed like a good idea at the time, but it's gonna cause me a little bit of headache, but nothing that I couldn't tackle. So I'm going to keep adding a little more detail to this picture of Kualoa, which is Mokoli'i in the foreground, our little island, and then Kaneohulani, which is the highest part of the mountain range back there. You can see in the background, and in the middle you have this beautiful ocean pattern. And I'm pulling a lot of these design elements from the Bingata style. So as we looked at those pictures earlier of the Okinawan traditional Bingata, I'm trying to kind of replicate and mimic the art style of those lines. So you see a lot of patterns that repeat. You see a lot of little lines that indicate shadow or shading, and very just basic detail in those pictures. So I'm trying to stay as close as I can to my interpretation of a Bingata style picture, and hopefully it turns out. You can see the background, I've got my clouds there, and I've got some repeating swirl patterns that are kind of an homage to some of those Bingata design patterns. But you'll also see a very specific swirling cloud pattern that you'll see in almost all Bingata design. They have this, it's a representation of clouds or smoke, and it almost looks like a ribbon, but you'll see it in almost all Bingata designs. And I have it here, right there. And you can see when I actually do add the paint, it adds a nice little pop, a nice little design element right there in the background. But I'm going to keep going here and just try my best to eyeball and keep my lines as straight as possible, knowing that at the end of the day, I'm going to put this thing through a machine that cuts a vinyl sticker out of this, and I'm going to have to peel away all that negative space. So basically everything that is not a black line, I'm going to have to take tweezers and peel those lines away. And you can see my attempts here to kind of eyeball it are sometimes successful and sometimes not so successful. I've got to go back and make some corrections and edits. But overall, I think I'm pretty happy with the way that the layout of this turned out. You can see these tiny little dots I'm adding there in the end of the drawing. I don't actually think they make it to the end of the drawing because they're just too tiny for me to pluck around when I'm pulling that vinyl away. So for my own future reference, I probably won't get that detailed in the future. So that's my basic design. This is what the sticker is going to end up looking like. And so the next step is to really take this into Cricut. And Cricut has a little software studio where you can actually upload your design and make it into a template. I'm not going to kind of go through all of that. I can do that in another video, but for those of you who are familiar with Cricut, that's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of putting it through the paces, and I'm going to go ahead and cut onto a piece of vinyl. And for those of you who aren't familiar, all Cricut is it's like a printer with a tiny little razor blade at the end, that'll slice its way through this piece of vinyl, and at the end of the day, it's going to create a sticker. And if you've never seen one of these things in action, it's kind of mind-blowing the first time you realize that a computer can actually do this and get that detailed with that tiny little blade. So I've got my piece of vinyl. The Cricut machine did its part of the job, but what I've got to do now is remove all of the negative space. So you can see I kind of fast forwarded through some of the boring part of that video, but I'm peeling away all of that negative space as much as I can without accidentally taking away the lines that I want as part of the stencil itself. So you see me struggling, with the dots there. That's me realizing that maybe that level of detail was a mistake. But you know, it's hard work, and it is, you know, very monotonous and very tedious. But once you get into that zone, I will tell you what, time just starts flying by, and you don't even realize. So this part I will fast forward through, and again, I can do this in another video, but I'm basically putting what is the equivalent of masking tape over the top of this. They call it transfer tape. That's how I'm gonna get this sticker onto my final watercolor paper. So now I gotta carefully remove the backing, and I do it super slowly just to make sure that I am not accidentally taking any of that stencil with me. So you can see at some parts I have to kind of coax the stencil to stay on the transfer tape, and I just go slow. So it takes a while. You'll see me kind of struggle with this for a little bit, but eventually I get it. This whole process is very satisfying at the end of the day. When you get it lined up and when you get that transfer tape on, and you're finally ready to paint, that's the best. So I'm just lining it up here, trying to get things just right. And once I have things lined up just the way I want, where the image is going to be kind of centered to the watercolor paper, I'm going to take a credit card or a scraper, and I'm just going to scrape from the middle, going from the middle to the outside. And if you're curious, the reason why I know all of this vinyl stuff is I used to be a sign maker when I was in college, kind of putting myself through school, and that's where I kind of learned how to make these vinyl signs. And so I've been experimenting with vinyl in different forms, and ever since I got the Cricut machine, and you know, vinyl sign making or stencil making or sticker making has become so affordable with the Cricut. Before it used to be a thing that only, you know, real professionals could do, but now with the Cricut machines, man, just about anybody, you know, you save up for a little bit, you can afford to have your own little production studio right in your house. So this is really satisfying for me because it came out pretty nice. I'm going to use 3 brushes today. Kind of a flat, wide one, and then a medium, and then I always go with a fine tip at the very end. You can see the big flat ones are the one that I'm going to use to primarily just wet the paper when I have real big swashes that I got to go over, big strokes. But the medium one is kind of my go-to for everything else. So I got 2 specific colors of paint. I got this nice fuchsia that I'm hoping will help describe that sunrise. And then the Okinawans love indigo. Indigo is one of the dyes that they make there actually. And so I got some indigo just so that I can do a little nod to my culture and use some of those blues in this watercolor painting. The thing I love the most about Bingata is, although you will see some of the designs have a very specific restricted color palette, a lot of the Bingata designs are kind of anything goes. They almost use all the colors of the rainbow, and I love coloring that way. I once in a while get into the mood where I want to restrict my palette and just kind of get moody, but for the most part, I really like kind of leveraging, you know, the full spectrum of color. And so that's kind of also what drew me to a lot of the art in Okinawa. So much of the artwork there is just so vibrant, and they don't really restrict themselves as much with a specific color palette in the traditional Western design sense. So I'm just gonna go over the top of the mountains here with my sunrise colors, and that's a little bit of pinks, magentas, and some of that fuchsia that I picked up. And I'm going to kind of blend it into a deeper purple. And you can see the technique here is just the same as regular watercolor, where you kind of lay down a lot of liquid first, and then you go in with the pigment and let it kind of bleed and crawl across the page. Kind of naturally, it gives it a really nice blend and a really nice texture. The nice thing about using the stencils is you don't have to be as careful with laying down that color. You can actually just paint right over the stencils. The vinyl is a matte plastic on the top, and so it is eventually going to peel away. It's like a sticker. It's eventually just going to peel away, but while it's on there, you can just kind of go crazy. You got to make sure that when you do that step where you're laying down the sticker with the transfer tape over the watercolor paper, that you're going real good with your scraper over the top to make sure you get a good seal on that vinyl to the watercolor paper. Because what you don't want is, you don't want at the end of your painting to peel away that vinyl sticker and realize that your colors bled underneath it. And apologize my big fat face there, just interrupting our session. But those are the ribbons that I was talking about, the design element that I saw so much in a lot of different Bingata designs that were being used. It's kind of a like a design element that they use in the background of the sky, or just to kind of tie in different pieces of design elements together within the repeating patterns. One thing that is very non-traditional about what I'm doing is I'm doing a picture or a landscape where it is being depicted almost, I would say, more realistic and less representational. When you look at Bingata artwork, it is much flatter, very two-dimensional, and the patterns are very simple, and they repeat almost like if you were designing, and it really is designing patterns for textile or for fabric. A lot of the Bingata that you see is actually used in clothing, in like an ornamental design elements within textile and fabric. So what I'm doing here, kind of little narrative landscape, is not traditional in terms of the way you would normally see Bingata patterns. If you just Google Bingata, you'll know what I mean. I'm getting that nice indigo into the waves, and then I'm going to go back into the sky with a little bit more color just to deepen the purples. So now it's time to get to my favorite part, which is peeling away the vinyl sticker. And this is so satisfying. This is where you get to see the fruits of all your labor, all your hard work in terms of design and laying out the vinyl, peeling away all the negative space, and then doing all of the effort of sticking it on and painting around it. You get to peel away the plastic vinyl to reveal these beautiful bold white lines underneath, and man, there is nothing better. I love this part. This is my favorite part. I really kind of get into Zen mode here. I'll take my time. I'll take up to 40 minutes, an hour. I don't like to rush it. I'm showing you in fast forward because it took me quite a while. I was enjoying myself, removing all the details and just really taking my time with this piece. Once you get into a zone, you can really get going and time really starts to disappear on you. So that's the picture, that's the image. This one was a gift from my mom, and her favorite color is purple, so the last thing to do is to slap a nice little mat on it and give it to her. Well, I hope you enjoyed our time today. I hope I inspired you to learn a little bit more about Kualoa or Mokoli'i or Bingata art. in general. And I hope you come back, because I'd love to do this again. Let me know in the comments below if it's something that you would consider doing if you have a Cricut machine. If I keep doing videos like this, how-tos, if you'd be interested in watching, or if you would be interested in buying a stencil. I'd love to help as many people as I possibly can get into art. I think one of the reasons why I love stencils and I love watercolor is it's so accessible. And if you throw these two together, I really feel like more folks would find that, hey, I've got a little artist in me too. And that's pretty much all the time we have left today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you here next time on Art Bento.